All right, so in that performance appraisal process, you remember what's going to happen is the manager is going to watch the behaviors of the employees. Then at various points, they're going to evaluate them and quantify job performance. But now, obviously, as we said, a good part of this reason we do the performance appraisal is to improve job performance. And employees cannot improve on job performance if they do not know why or where they are deficient. Okay? So clearly feedback is the most important part of the performance appraisal process because this is where the potential to implement changes occurs. Okay? So traditionally, performance has been evaluated, rated only by the manager. That's about it. So that's not great because, as we say, a supervisor or manager only sees a fraction of what an employee does. And so different people see different things, okay? So you can see that there is different degrees of intercorrelation among feedback, which is given by various sources. Okay? So we find that supervisors are sometimes overburdened, right? They have too many things to do. Sometimes they're hesitant because they haven't had enough interactions with an employee. The interactions they have had have been perhaps poor quality. Maybe there's no trust in there. A lot of things. But anyway, as a faculty member at Texas Wesleyan University, I absolutely have an annual meeting with my supervisor, and my supervisor would be my dean. Okay? And we discuss job performance. Now, when it comes to a faculty member at Texas Wesleyan University, job performance is connected to teaching, research, and service. Actually, there's a fourth category, community service. So one is service to the university, to the department, to the discipline, and one is service to your larger community. Okay? So we find that it's ironic that the hesitation managers have to providing all of this is because of the time it takes, but if done properly, as we said, it makes the manager's job easier. So, a lot of different things. But supervisors can hesitate because they're afraid of getting sued. Absolutely, it's not an unheard of thing. Okay? So, other people can provide feedback as well because other people see different behaviors, like a peer. The people that are working next to you every single day can see your average performance. See, the day that you know that the manager is watching you, you are going to give maximum performance, okay? We talked about that one earlier on job performance. But your typical job performance is what your peers are going to see, okay? And so, yeah, faculty members at Texas Wesleyan, as part of the process of evaluating job performance, is we must undergo, I think it's a 5-year cycle. Anyway, once every 4 or 5 years. Could be 3. I think people lose track. But faculty members undergo POET, the Pure Observation and Evaluation of Teaching, where one of my colleagues will come in during a class with a very straightforward rubric and quantify my job performance. Okay? Yeah, you can have some problems here. If you're using peer ratings for things like finances, then, backbiting can happen. How about rating yourself? Okay? And so, absolutely, before I ever meet with my dean for my annual review, I'm going to write a annual report. I have to write every single year. It's a massive document where I have to, oh God, it's a deep dive. I have to do every single learning objective in every single course. I have to quantify. I need to reflect on. Oh God, it's painful. All right. So yeah, self-ratings can be used, and there is some feelings of justice involved because the employee themselves have some say in the process. Okay. obviously a subordinate can provide feedback, right? And again, as part of my annual report, an annual review, and the quantification of my job performance, student evaluations. Absolutely, that is exactly what those are. And student evaluations are a valuable part of a larger process, but they are what they are. I mean, we faculty know if you want to get really high student evaluations, it's so simple. Number one, teach courses that students want, all right? Not like science. Students don't want science. Whenever students rate a science course, the scores are low. Not because the faculty is bad, because they don't like science. Oy. Another reason is perhaps if you want to get good student evaluations, make it an easy course. If you lower the grading standards, I guarantee you your student evaluations are going to spike. So having high student evaluations, or even low, they need to be considered and looked at as part of a package, but there are so many reasons that student evaluations can be high or low that they are, they are what they are. But just as this research here, Hedge and Borman, yeah, student evaluations are 100% anonymous. I know a lot of times students say, can I get extra credit for filling out the student evaluation? I'm like, I don't know who you are, okay? That's why I give extra credit if, look at the syllabus, by the way, towards the end of the semester when you're asked to fill out the student evaluation for the course, if a certain percent of the class completes it, then everybody gets extra credit, because I have no way of knowing who has or has not completed it, okay? So, a newer way to work the system is multi-source or 360-degree feedback. That is, in order to truly evaluate an employee, the supervisor must give their input, their peers give some input, the subordinates give some input. But yet there's some, and self, those are the four that we just talked about. But then depending, of course, on the occupation, a customer feedback can be a different piece of information. A supplier can be a different piece of information. So together, each one of these, I guess there's 6 up here, are telling a different story about job performance. We talked about how flexible this word job performance is, and so each one of these 6 sources of feedback provides a different avenue on job performance. So 360-degree feedback, there's some different assumptions about it. Participants tend to be happier because they're involved in the process. You find that if one of these sources or one of these pieces of information is biased in some way or another, it usually kind of evens itself out. And as we said, each rater sees a different perspective. Therefore, you're able to tackle job performance in a more concrete, large way. Okay? And so, as you can see, here's a somewhat typical report. Here is the evaluation of the job performance of somebody based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess it was 10, unless I counted wrong. 10 different dimensions of job performance. And you can see that the ratings are pretty tight, though, as we're not surprised, the self-ratings tend to be a little higher, and that's not an unexpected thing. That's cognitive psychology, okay? Sorry. And so it's not a surprising outcome, but even though the self-ratings are higher, they still match the pattern of the other sources of feedback. So if you take the average in the dark purple line, that's probably a pretty good reflection of what this particular person's job performance is. So when you give the feedback to an employee, you need to consider that will the employees pay attention to the feedback, or they blow it off. All right? I definitely have some colleagues that when they get the feedback from their annual reports, they just say, I don't give a shit. Okay, I've heard of all kinds of, all right? So I'm just going to let that go, okay? Do the employees have the cognitive ability to process the feedback, all right? Got to consider it. then if they pay attention to it and have the ability to understand it, will they use it? Okay, so clearly these three steps, because if all three of these steps don't occur, then the entire performance management system just explodes. There's just no point of a performance management system if these three aren't happening at the end. Okay, all right.